Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. I've actually got two subjects to talk about tonight, keeping in pace with what's been happening, but they're kind of like very different. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to split them up. And I'll shoot them back to back because I have to do it that way because tomorrow it'll be a whole nother thing, and I have to constantly maintain keeping a record of the step-by-step process of the things that change. So last night I did round 2 of the whole using the things that we talked about in the last couple videos to try and scoop out what's left of the ego mind so that Christ consciousness mind can fully take over. And there's been some interesting effects from that. But what she's drawn my attention to, we're going to focus solely on the first subject now, is a more surgical application of the protocols and the Hemisphere oils. So what is remaining, like let me check here, what's my current, how much ego level is still there? Is it more than 10%, more than 20? More than 30, more than 40, 39, 38, 37, 36, 35, 34. So I got like 33% ego mind remaining. But what is contained in that remaining 33% is like a much stickier, it's more sticky stuff. It's kind of like the deep ruts in the dirt road left from the hero's journey, like the specific patterns that emerged when you were being tested really, really hard. So these are kind of like they become like almost like permanent crossed conditions. And it takes a little bit more specific work in order to get those out. And the reason why she waited to bring it up now is because she was actually, in my case, waiting for me to complete the 3 sides of the triangle, divine masculine, divine feminine, and divine child, to get that trifecta of divine authority, and then teach me a few more things to make it work, whereas before it didn't work. So we're going to talk a little bit. We're going to talk about the at least one of the oils that we use in the protocols, and what it specifically does and how we can tune it a little bit more specifically to be like a superior method of uncrossing. For those of you that don't know magical terms and stuff like that, cross conditions can be curses, it can be self curses, it could just be like it's a pattern of things that just go wrong and then stay that way. So it could be something that happened to you yourself from a pattern. It could be running afoul of some magic practitioners and you believed in what they did, and then that just kind of like subconsciously gave permission for the experience to happen. It could be a bunch of different things, but they can be very tricky to get rid of, to get clear. So we're going to talk about a more specific application of this oil and the protocol method in order to clear those cross conditions. Because so far what we've been doing is kind of like this mass batch uncrossing of just getting out from underneath the ego mind, the adversary mind, and your left brain life matrix, like everything you think you know, all the patterns, all the connections, all the definitions of words, what things mean. Like you got to break that stuff down so you can have new experiences, so you can see new things, so you can gain new information. But some of these sticky things are sticky. So instead of doing like this batch thing, we're going to be zeroing in on specifics. So if you want to know more, don't go away. Okay, we're going to use the framework of magic practitioners. I think it'll make the most sense, but it doesn't have to be. It could be any type of patterns. Matter of fact, a lot of the things like that are considered like, you know, curses from God in the Old Testament are attached to things that a lot of people would feel enormous amounts of guilt and remorse for, and that's actually where it's coming from. But in this case, let's just use this framework of like an external thing. Like lots of people feel like they've been cursed or, you know, has something attached to them or something like that. So how does that happen? So there's two aspects to it. There's the outer world and the inner world. Now, when you even passively accept that somebody okay, so let's start with the most passive acceptance is if you accept that magic is real and people do it and curses are real, then that is the first level of passive acceptance. Now, if there's specific people and you believe that specific people have that amount of power and that amount of ability, that's another layer of passive acceptance. So let's say you get into some sort of tiff with a witch or something like that, and all of a sudden things strangely start going wrong. Well, if they did do something and you have, you know, those couple layers of passive acceptance, then it can start to work on you, because remember, everything outside of you is still the inside of your mind. It's a reflection of the inside of your mind. So when do you actually become cursed or start a curse pattern? The moment that you think that you are. The moment that you entertain the possibility that that has happened, the moment you start to accept it on an internal level, that might have been done to you, it is now active. And what will happen is, if you've got that adversary mind, that parasite is going to take that and just go to town with it. Injecting the thoughts. Maybe you're cursed. Maybe you're cursed. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And it sets up this pattern of expectation of more bad things to happen. Very, very tricky to get out of. So what we need to remember is that it does not matter what someone out here is doing, what's going on anytime, anywhere out in the outside world. What matters is what is going on in the story of your inner world. What is going on in your mind matrix? What is it that you believe? You know, the permissions that you've given and things like that. That's where it needs to be fixed, because it's how the whole world is controlled. We have all the power about what we create, but we've been trained to be very suggestible, and we then make our own reality. See, that's what happened with the situation that happened several years ago that the media made a big stink about. So when they pumped out all the fear about this particular thing, and if you were watching closely as we were, then in the beginning, like all sorts of people, it's like they couldn't pin down what the symptoms were. Oh, people are reporting this. That's because it was all psychosomatic, self-manifested. Because you inject enough fear and expectation. This was actually in the book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And he used an example on the lower level that if you could be like on a cruise ship and you could feel fine, and someone could walk up to you and say, "You doing all right, man? You don't look so good. Like, you look like a little green around the gills. You feeling okay?" And they implant that suggestion, and then your mind takes it, and suddenly you do feel seasick and you do start feeling sick. Like, that little bit of that example in that book is all it takes. Now extrapolate that to what you saw back several years ago, with it constantly being blared at you through the TV set 24/7 with mass amounts of fear added in there. Of course people were going to self-manifest sickness. But that's also how curses work too. All you have to do is have a certain set of experiences, have a certain set of passive beliefs, and have some witch or whatever, like, oh no, I'm gonna get you, and take the little voodoo doll and do all this stuff to it, and then you start manifesting the effects of it. But you're the one that's doing it. Understand that. The reason that it's happening is coming from your own power. A suggestion, a program of an experience with an expectation has been implanted into your head when there was already a passive acceptance of it, and now you are what manifests it. I have a lot of experience with this. This was a major part of my hero's journey. Me basically just pissing off every witch in the world, basically. But even after all that stuff had passed, things kept happening, and I kept wondering, is that person doing something again? Is that person doing something again? Is that like, I haven't, but I'm like, one day I caught myself and I'm like, do I have any evidence? Like, how would I know? Like, how would that even work? I'm like, am I doing this myself? Is this my own patterns of belief and expectation that is creating this? And I started to hone in on that. And eventually most of it got cleared up, but there are some really deep level stuff that she's got me working out right now. Bottom line is, if you believed you're cursed, you are cursed. You are powering it. Therefore, the only real true way to attack any type of curse belief, curse experience, whatever, is you have to aim your efforts in the right direction, which means the exact same place that we've been aiming everything at with the protocols, the left brain matrix. That's where the codes are. That's where the experience is. That's just, it's part of all your other stuff, all your other life knowledge, life experience, beliefs, expectations, everything's in there. But when it comes to like the big things that got you, like the deeper things, it just, like I said, it leaves a deeper rut in the dirt road. So whereas before we're doing kind of like this general uncrossing of just your left brain being the crossed condition, because it's just full of all sorts of bad info. Now we're going to like zero in on the specifics of a certain thing, and we'll probably spend a couple nights focusing solely on that. So when it comes to the 2 Hemisphere oils, which I need to make more because I'm on my last set. So we got this one, which is kind of like your divine power, powering up the right brain, but we're going to focus on the left brain one, because where the left brain formula is different from the right brain formula is in the ingredients. So there's 3 major, say 4 major things embedded in this. The first being the stones, what the stones are, what the stones are known for, what they're doing, and what we program them to do. They're big time, like negative energy transmutation type stones. The second is the chosen names of God here. So we've got Yichu, which breaks the cycle of reacting to the black mirror, which we've talked about quite a bit on here, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But it's your reaction to what you see, what the world shows you, that decides whether that pattern continues or not. If you keep reacting to it, the pattern continues and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Ia is to break mental resistance to change. The third one, Reha, is about transformation. It's transforming good or negative and evil thoughts and feelings and transmuting them into good and positive ones. And then the big one, Moom, is destruction of the patterns, breaking them down. These are very powerful. If that's all that I used was these 2 things, it would still be powerful. But what I added into my oil is we get sometimes we use some third-party oils, which we do some little tweaking to ourselves. A particular brand that I like, and then how we tweak them is we charge little pieces of quartz crystal that have been charged in the chrism, where I had to do the whole ritual in the river, the star card and all that. So I'm putting this divine charge in, and I take a little piece of that crystal and I drop it in each one of those third-party bottles, and then I do my own blessing on them. But I'm amplifying the original program that's in them. I'm just bringing it up in scale. So then the 3 oils that I add a couple drops of each to this formula is Uncrossing oil, Blockbuster oil, and Road Opener oil. Like, these are like the 3 biggest types of spell oils for getting unstuck. The other thing that, the 4th thing that I program into this when I do it is I sit there and I do 7 rounds of the Benedict exorcism, programming that in there as well. And then I breathe her divine light into it. So that's what, 5, 6 different things. So I would go so far as to say that just this left brain hemisphere oil is probably one of the most powerful negative spell breaking uncrossing oils anyone's ever made, because she taught me how. And it's in the application, it's in the context, because we're not just putting it on us and like, break this spell so all these bad things start happening. No, we're using this to laser focus, aim the intention and the energy at the data and the story of the situation that is located in the left brain matrix. It's in your story code. It's in the code that is part of how you are now rendering your reality. You can have all sorts of good stuff flowing in from source through the right brain, but then it has to go through the left brain filter to be altered and changed the way you see and experience things. That's one of the biggest reasons why the protocols are all about breaking down the left brain matrix, emptying your cup, breaking down everything you think you know, letting go of all your attachments to knowledge, all your attachments to how you think, how you believe things work, all your attachments and data, like, because you've accumulated this, you've accumulated your left brain space, over what? Probably the younger people on here, mid-20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, decades. You got decades worth of world data in this left brain matrix. And that's why we get to a certain point, if we want to go further, we have to empty the cup. To see the light of wisdom, you must empty your cup of everything. Of everything. Literally freaking everything. So, but by doing the same process with the protocols, what we're going to do is we're going to write out what the specific issues are. For me, I've got them nailed down to like a couple different things. How she brought my attention to this. It started the night they tried to kill me with the car. Like, this is right after I activated the divine masculine mind and that whole car story. I started out of the blue, and I hardly drive my car. Only place I go is like for groceries and stuff like that. But all of a sudden, I'm getting all these warning lights in my car. Now, my car was like the focal point of all these cross conditions going back years when it all started. That's where I would see it most manifest. It just started doing crazy stuff. Like, I don't drive it that much. I've been working for myself since 2013. I don't have to commute like miles and miles every day to go back and forth to work or anything like that. I don't put miles on it. But the car was constantly screwing up, constantly braking in strange ways, constantly doing crazy things. One time, this was a big epinoia moment. One of the many times that she's protected me in the car. I was driving with the kids to the store and we heard this bang. And I'm like, I know I didn't hit anything, so what was that? And instantly in my head, it was like it had something to do with, cross conditions and like angelic help, because I don't think I knew about her quite yet. But something just happened. We got to the store, and we went home, parked the car, everything's fine. The next day, when I went to drive the car, as soon as I started backing out, it's like grinding metal. I'm like, what the hell? So it was like my tie rod broke on the way to the store, and she held it together until I got parked back home safely. As soon as the car was safely back home, she let go of it, and then when I tried to drive it again, then it starts grinding metal. And that was like one of the craziest things I ever saw, like how that happened, how she did that. That's happened many times. Like, I don't know how many times they've tried to like mess me up with my car. But yeah, now it's like all these lights are going off in my car, and it just reminded me of that time. And it's kind of like that car is almost like it's almost like, how, if you've been with me for a while, you know how she did all this craziness to get me out of the old apartment and into this new one. Because I was in the old apartment through the entirety of the hero's journey, like massive amounts of suffering in that apartment. Plus, during the whole spells and witches time frame, like all these people have my address and they're cursing my freaking address. So she's like, the only way to get out from under this place is to get out of here altogether. So she kind of like let something off the chain so it would wreck the apartment, which it did. And that opened the door to me getting out of that one and into a new place that nobody knew about. And the first thing we did was build this altar, and now this place is a rock solid fortress. But then there's the car. The car is kind of like an extension of the old apartment. Now that I'm seeing that, those two were very closely connected. So she might be making some sort of moves to get me out of that car, get me into a new car, and letting that go. Because it was all I know is it was super duper duper important that I got out of that apartment and into this one. So, but either which way, she's letting this stuff happen, because I first started seeing the warning lights like right before the car almost hit us. And I remember thinking, maybe she doesn't want me to go out tonight. But ever since then, for no reason, like I'm having all these issues again. So it drew my attention back to where she wants to go next. Like, this is that 30% of the ego mind that we're having a hard time getting rid of, is these deeper old patterns that are in there. And in order to deal with them, all we have to do is the protocols, but we have to razor focus in on them with specificity. And in my case, because it was all hero's journey stuff, so it was extreme, she waited until I completed the triangle. So I've had the Divine Feminine unlocked for all this time, and because she's the sword, whoops, what did I just knock over? Because she's the sword, I could get a lot done with that. When you unlock the Divine Masculine side, that's the hand holding the sword. And then when you unlock the Divine Child, the Sun Child, the Christ Child, the new mind, that is the crown. So you got all three sides of the Divine Authority Trinity in play now. So now we have an added amount of power with which to direct at clearing out these patterns that I haven't touched in some time. Now here is where this is important when it comes to the ego mind, your mind, and this divine triangle of authority. Okay, so it comes down to this name, which is number 47, which is Eshal. It is also the first name in my Divine Masculine crown oil. Eshal and the second one, Yaha, both have to do with divine authority. Now listen to this. So I'm going to read the text of this particular name. The subtitle is Commanding Presence. So the word command shows up multiple times here. With the name Eshal, you can access divine authority and command with the presence of a great leader. Spirits will cooperate, and people who are willfully under your command will be awed by your splendor. And then the magic results are a sense of the contemplation magic, which is like your internal changes, a sense of leadership, the defense of your realm, the power to command spirits. It's a kind of a blanket term. Results magic to command with great leadership. Command, command, command. What did we say about command? Like, that's like a huge word that she threw out there all of a sudden that you need to understand. When you're trying to make things happen, you have to command. Because it is just like a computer. That's the reason why these words are in the outer world, in the inner world. You give commands, you enter commands in the computer. You know, commanding officer, executive officer. The commanding officer gives the commands, the executive officer, the XO, executes the commands. Okay? So who exactly are these people that it is talking about? Spirits, and remember, this is all encoded stuff. Like, it's hard to understand this stuff until she lets you understand it. Spirits and people who are willfully under your command. So who would that be? Well, think about the structure that we talked about, the Father, Mother, Son, and these parts of the mind, which for the most part are unconscious. It's talking about you not knowing how your mind works, being the Father, giving the commands to the ego mind. When you believe something and expect something, it gets reflected back to your ego mind. Your ego mind accepts it and then renders the experience. So you're not just aiming at your left brain when you're doing this uncrossing. You're not only removing it from your left brain hemisphere life matrix, but you're going to zero in on the remaining aspects of the ego that are engrossed and entrapped in this rut. It's very similar to a trauma identity, except a trauma identity usually revolves around a single instance that happened. This is kind of like a different type of trauma identity that identifies with a bad pattern of events, a bad expectation of events, because it feels very victimized. So we need to release that part of the ego mind, clear it, and then command it to go into the light, back to source, back to the source library, like we talked about in the previous videos. What is the part that is under your command? The ego mind. But first you have to be conscious of all this stuff. Now, even if you haven't unlocked everything that I have, if you at least have the knowledge, see, you're still using the Father, Mother parts of your mind, even if you're not conscious of them at the higher level that I am. That's how your life works. So that's why you got to, the easiest way to do that, this is how you would do it. You do it exactly like I described in the previous videos about how I cleared the trauma identities and what she told me to do right before I did it. This is right before she showed up, so it was kind of just like a thought in my head. Told me, pretend that you're God sitting on the throne talking to you. So that is you accessing the sleeping Father, giving instructions and commands to your ego. That's what she wants me to do next, is focus in on these trauma pattern identities. Trauma pattern identities are harder to spot than regular trauma identities, because trauma identities, you know, you can easily identify them. When the girl that I love so much broke my heart, when this happened, when I got divorced, when I got hit in the face with a baseball bat by a midget, like whatever the thing was that happened, like you can identify that trauma identity by the event. But then there's a trauma pattern identities. Like, this is just coming out of my mouth as I'm talking. She's trying to make it clearer. So we need to go after the trauma pattern identities, which are the root sources of your crossed conditions. And they can sleep. They can go dormant until a situation comes up that is associated with the cross condition, and then they can flare up. So that's what she wants me to do next, in using pretty much the same thing as the protocols, with a dash of that trauma identity release, but specifically using that left brain matrix oil, targeting not only the overall left brain matrix of your mind, but also those specific trauma pattern identities, and then using all those formulas on that, while at the same time activating the triple threat of the divine authority and commanding it, clearing it, healing it, commanding it. Go. See that Doctor Strange portal over there with the dude with the sun like a face who's going like this? You're going with him. This is not a debate. You're going. I have power over you. If you have power over anything, you have power over your ego mind once you activate it, once you know the difference. And then we're going to send that off and be done with it for good. So for those of you that might have similar instances, those of you that are more metaphysically inclined or have been playing in the magic realm at times or for a while, the magic people, they have a wider idea of what's possible in reality, but they're also susceptible to more things because they tend to believe in more things. And ergo, that means more things are able to arise within their experience and affect them. I had to shut all the stuff I used to believe in off. Flip the switch, flip the switch, flip the switch. Remove permission, remove permission, remove permission. That's how you get rid of stuff. But yeah, any type of cross condition, curse, anything like that, you have to use the right kind of tools, and you have to target its representation in the left brain matrix and clear it from there. Hopefully that makes sense. If anyone has like specific troublesome issues, I can help with that. I've seen some come up recently. Where we did make some like Aegis pendants, which are like the biggest pendant for like negative defense, protection, Benedict power, and all that stuff for people. But sometimes you encounter clients which are clearly in the hero's journey, and they're at a place in their hero's journey where they've got their world built out so far, so much, and they've got all these names and characters and meanings, and like, well, this means this and this means that, and this is what's happening, that she just basically tells me, give them the tools, they got to work this out like you did, because it would literally require me telling them, look, it would require me to tell them, everything you know is a figment of your imagination, and you need to let it all go and delete it from your mind. Now, if somebody had told me that 5-6 years ago, when I was in the thick of it, I wouldn't have accepted that. I'm like, I know what I'm dealing with. I'm fighting evil. Like, you're too deep in it. You're too deep in it. And like, every once in a while, there's a case like that where she's like, give them the tools, but they're on their own path, and they got to do this themselves. But people that are not neck deep, eyeballs deep in the hero's journey, like, we can do more to help them. If they've already been listening to this channel, for instance, for some time, then they know what's up. They know our structure of things, and they're going to be a little bit more susceptible and open to it. But there are people out there that, like, they've got their own ideas of, like, who all these divine beings are and how they all interplay and what they're doing to them, and it's like, I remember when I was that way. And they're not going to hear you. Give them some tools. Try to, like, clear out what you can. Give them the tools. Tell them how they work. It's kind of like in the video games. Like, you meet a wizard and he gives you some magic potions. It's up to you now what you're going to do with them. You're in the test. As much as I would like to, for people that are legitimately doing the hero's journey test, I can't just make it all go away for you. But just like I had people that helped me out from time to time with tools and knowledge and things like that, I can still do that. I can still give you some pretty powerful stuff. But she's like, she didn't let other people that knew, like, come in and fix me. It's like, nope, you got to do this. But I only know a handful of people that I could say for absolute certainty that they're currently in the hero's journey. Hero's journey sucks. Hero's journey is literally exactly like the movies. Like most movies, most popular movie franchises are based on the hero's journey. Star Wars is like the biggest one. Lord of the Rings is Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and The Matrix are all like prime top tier examples of the hero's journey. It's a pattern. It's a pattern, and it's the same pattern that's in the tarot, because it's an actual thing. It's like a sub-level of the life game that people choose to play to get bigger rewards when they're done. That's how you get, like, the big stuff. Like you can still connect to Lumen and Epinoia and stuff like that, but you're not going to get her, like, on the level that I have her, unless you go fight some dragons, unless you go into some deep dark caves, unless you do some freaking Clash of the Titans level shit, which I did, literally. And this stuff was not just all in my mind too. It was like coming at me in the outside world. So you want to get the big rewards, you gotta, like, pray to her and be like, I am willing to take the test. And honestly, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you should do a hell of a lot better. Like, there's so much knowledge that we've dumped into this channel. Like, anybody that's watched this channel has so many more tools for surviving the hero's journey. I had no freaking idea. None. I had to figure it all out on my own, and not realizing just how powerful of a manifester that I was. I was creating half of it. Cat, I am literally filming. The tripod is not a back scratcher. Seriously. Jinx, come here. This is the black cat is always in, like, the High Priestess card, and also, like, the... Yes. Tell them who gave you to me. Tell them how Epinoia dropped you off at my house one day. And you've been there ever since. Shedding all over the place. Anyway, we still got the other topic to talk about. That's a little different. That's more the Lumen stuff. So anyway, we're going to stop this for right now and get on to the next one. If you want to contact us, if you want to pick up the oils, they're not listed on the Etsy store, but you can still contact us through the Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. You can find me on Facebook as Christopher Lucerna, Lucerna. You'll know it's me because my background wallpaper is Lumen. Those are the best ways to get a hold of us. Etsy especially, because those notifications always push their way through the phone to get to me. Okay, so that's all we got for right now. Chris and Empress Lumen. See you next time.